seated. I've always found the first sentence of this gospel lesson that we just heard confusing and odd. Ruminating on the nature of salt and the quality of saltiness. And it's always prompted me to move beyond that opening line very quickly to the rest of the gospel lesson. It seems to make a lot more sense. I once participated in a preaching seminar with a group of colleagues, and this seminar culminated with an exercise where our instructor sat in the center aisle of a church with a hat. And each participant, when it was his or her time, walked over to the hat and withdrew a slip of paper. And on the slip of paper was a single Bible verse, not a whole gospel passage like we just heard, but a single line. Maybe even not a complete sentence, just a snippet. And we were to take that snippet and immediately step into the pulpit and preach a 5 to 7 minute extemporaneous sermon. Now, I love that kind of thing because I love testing myself, which might make me strange, I suppose. But I like just always pushing my limits and boundaries, and I like that experience of making room for the Spirit to do something. Because when I carefully craft a text and dissect a text and edit and carefully choose every word and want to go line by line, I have a way of sort of pushing the Spirit out of it. So I like leaving a little room for God to do something. So I was very, very fortunate when I chose my little snippet of Scripture. I had a very easy passage. Can't remember what it was now, but it was something, you know me, I went on and on and on, you know. They were in the back flagging me, telling me time was up, stand down, stand down. But one of my friends, close friend, drew that line about salt. And I remember his 5 minutes, standing there on the broad step, preaching extemporaneously. It went something like this. Salt is salty. So salt that is not salty might not actually be salt at all. Saltiness is part of salt. Salt is like salt. You get the idea. So in the midst of all of this salt business, what is it about? And what does it mean to us? So after 12 years of not really knowing, I finally decided to have a look at this. And salt was really important in the ancient world. It was a preservative that kept meat edible long before freezers and ice boxes and all these sorts of things. So it was very, very important. Salt also had this way of expanding the food supply, because salt made food that wasn't very good palatable, because you were able to season it and sort of mask the ickiness of it. So with salt, you could eat lots of stuff that you couldn't eat before. And while most of us consume too much salt in our day, salt as a primary element is necessary for sustaining life in small quantities. So what would it mean for salt to lose its saltiness. The word used in the text that means to lose saltiness also has another meaning, which is to become foolish. In fact, it's the root word that comprises moron. Moros. So what would it mean for a useful element like salt to become foolish? Maybe it would mean something like having salt available as a resource, knowing what it does, knowing what it's good for, yet not using it, not deploying it. It might mean standing in a room full of fresh beef, having a container of salt, knowing that you can use it to make it last, to enrich it, to sustain it, and put it away for another day, but not to do so. And let that room full of beef around you spoil. The foolishness is not harnessing the thing for its purpose. The foolishness of the thing is allowing it to go to waste when you don't have to allow it to go to waste. Wasting it when something could be done. So Jesus says in this passage that we are salt. Does he mean that as his followers, we are primary elements of life necessary for life in this world? Does he mean that we enhance life? That we add flavor, making life richer than it would be without us? Does he mean that we are forces that preserve and extend life now and forever through our work as disciples of the risen Lord? Perhaps the point is that our primary identity as followers of Jesus is to be about enriching and giving and extending life in the name of the risen Lord. If we're otherwise occupied with other things that are not about life, we're foolish, standing about as life spoils around us. I often wrestle with what I've said to you at various points in our life together. And I'm always Monday morning quarterbacking myself, not just about the sermon, but about all of the communication that we experience together. And I've shared so much with you lately, so much data about the Episcopal Church and its state, about St. Columba's and its state, about the Diocese of Rhode Island, all of it. And as I said last week at the annual meeting, I don't do this to frighten. I do this so that we can take stock of where we are and know what we need to do. But I'm perfectly aware that when I put the data out there in a way that I often do, I probably do it in such a way that any sensible person would come to the conclusion that we need to grow and sustain the institutional church. And we do. That's true. That's absolutely true. But I want to offer a corrective to that this morning, because I'm not really completely invested in merely maintaining an organization. Because I think organizations that that exist in this world, if they're serving their purpose, they thrive. If they do what they're intended to do, they're about life and they give life. And when they cease to be about that, they disappear. And hopefully something better takes their place. I'm not thinking about techniques and programs, even though we talk a lot about techniques and programs as a parish church. What I'm thinking about is the goal of all programming, the goal of all worship, the goal of all the techniques that we employ. And it's not about building a strong institution. It's about touching hearts and minds. It's about speaking the saving word of Jesus Christ that is about life. It's about bringing us together to strengthen the ways that we do that, knowing that when we do, we have something compelling to offer. But if we're just thinking about beating the bushes to get more people to help us pay the light bill, I'm frankly not very interested. I don't think the rest of the world is either. I'm talking about living lives that are real and authentic, marked by congruence, where what we say we believe is affected and demonstrated in our lives as followers of Jesus, where our expenditures that show what we value match what we think God values, where our time and effort is placed in what we say is important. When we're authentic and emboldened to share it personally in tiny small groups, one soul to another, then we are salt and light. Because it's then we're making something manifest in a person's life. It's manifest in our lives. And when others see something real, something authentic, not something shiny and polished, but see something in all its imperfect glory, it is infectious. And others want to discover what it's about, and others want to explore it and understand it. Friends, the gospel spreads and lives are changed when we recognize what we have, what we're called to do with it, and put it to use in the name of life, the kind of life that Jesus lived and died for. The gospel spreads and lives are changed when we know who we are, salt and light.